camera one is dead central, it just doesn't look it because of the bars. So. Hello, got some replays? Everything good?
Out and we are racing into the Retifilio. He's got a really good run. Sailing up the inside. Battle for the lead. Victory in Monza.
Hello and welcome to the 2021 Le Mans Virtual Series. We are at the Autodromo Nazionale di Monza for the first of 5 races in this brand new championship that will culminate in the 24 hours of Le Mans Virtual run in January. Well, hello everybody, I'm Martin Haven. I'll be joined by Chris McCarthy and Lewis McGlade for the series, and we are bringing back some of the star names, star drivers and star teams from the real world and the virtual to compete in the series. We start in Monza with a 4-hour race, and as we continue heading to Spa-Francorchamps, the traditional 6 hours of Spa, that will be in mid-October. And then to the Nürburgring. This is something the World Endurance Championship for real has never done, taking LMP2 and LMGTE cars to the Nordschleife in November. They must be mad. Sebring 500 in December will be the final countdown before we go to January and the Le Mans 24 Hours Virtual. Well, it is a mouth-watering prospect to have such a great array of teams and drivers. 38 teams signed up in LMP2 and in GTE for the series, and we're looking towards perhaps starting again 50 cars in the 24 hours of Le Mans Virtual. So we've got plenty to get through. Today we're going to be looking at qualifying, and tomorrow the race itself. So what about this Monza circuit? Well, it is well known by all the drivers, sim racers and otherwise. And so, Chris McCarthy, it's going to be different, but the same, isn't it? Because we're kind of going back to what we did last June with the Le Mans 24 Hours Virtual, but for a whole championship.
Yeah, that's it. Everyone loved the Le Mans 24 Hours Virtual. Over 14 million viewers tuned into that. So we thought we'd give you a little bit more. We thought we'd give you 5 races and do a full championship, test these teams not just over 24 hours, but over multiple hours, over multiple races, and then it culminates in that 24-hour race in January, which is going to be fantastic.
So let's take a look at the race format, see how it's all going to work out.
Le Mans Virtual Series explained. The event will be run on the R-Factor 2 platform and includes a 38-car field, which will be up to more than 50 for the series finale, multi-class driving between Le Mans prototypes and GTEs. There'll be driver changes, dynamic weather and day-to-night transitions. The schedule will begin here at the Temple of Speed at Monza before we head to the 6 hours of Spa in October, the 8 hours of Nordschleife in November, and the 6 hours of Sebring to round out the year. But the season finishes at the 24-hour Le Mans Virtual at the Autosport International Show in January. The rules of the series include that each team must contain at least 1 professional driver, which will be up to 2 for Le Mans. Each driver will have to meet minimum and maximum driver times. Teams will work to create their own setups to optimize performance. Full simulation includes the use of fuel and tyres. Mechanical failures such as engine and brake failures will be included. Damage will affect the car but can be repaired in the pit stops, and stewards will oversee on-track action and will apply penalties if required. The prize pool is $250,000 across the series, half of which will be in the series itself and half of which will be applied to the 24-hour finale. It'll be split equally between each category, and the top 10 finisher receives prize money according to the positions in the series standings.
So for those of you who watched the Le Mans 24 Hours Virtual last June, you will pretty much understand where we are. The 2 fields, prototypes will be the Oreca 07, the go-to car in LMP2. But in the GTEs, Chris, there's a choice. However, it seems there is definitely one popular choice.
Yeah, of course, last year they were picking for a 24-hour race. This year they're picking for 5 races in total. The Porsche has been the most popular out of the 17 entries we have for this series. Of course, in the 24-hour, we're going to welcome even more teams. But for the championship, we have 11 Porsches. We welcome, though, the BMWs. We didn't see them at the 24-hour last year. 4 have come to the series this year. But the car that won the 24-hour last year, there's only one of them, one Aston Martin. And then, of course, we have the Corvette as well, which went very well. One of the teams took that to 4th last year. So the Red Bull team, who are a new entity this year, Dennis Lin, though, took that car to 4th last year. So they've got some experience there. But it's going to be interesting. I mean, obviously, the Porsche is, a safe pair of hands for most people. But I'm most interested to see how that BMW goes throughout the course of the season.
Yeah, it's great to see different shapes and hear different noises. We've got some familiar team names, we've got some familiar driver names, not necessarily aligned as they were at Le Mans last year. And some teams that may not appear to be here may just have different branding. So there's a lot to get through. First thing, though, we've got to do is deal with qualifying. As in the Real World Endurance Championship, we don't just open the floodgates and send them all out together. So the GTE cars will go out first for a 20-minute session. And again, as in the World Endurance Championship, it is the single fastest lap by a driver in a car that decides its track position. Then we'll send out the Lmp2 cars. So the challenge here, of course, well, Monza's really only got 3 corners and 3 chicanes. Strictly speaking, there are 11 turns, but you've got a long fast straight into Curva Grande with a chicane in the middle. Then you get through the Roggia, the 2 Lesmos, to Variante Ascari and down to the Parabolica. So it is very well understood, it's very well known, but as always, the devil is going to be in the detail, Chris, and the teams will have spent a lot of time working on the detail.
Yeah, that's it. You know, with those chicanes particularly, you're going into very, very long straights. So although there's less room for error, the error is much, much more costly around here. And you can't just lose one place, you could lose multiple places. So that's going to be the trick to it. And it's going to be interesting to see how they play out throughout the 4 hours. Some teams might choose to just sit in behind and save some fuel. Some teams might choose to work together in this qualifying session maybe. So there's those possibilities as well. Do you want to be the team cut out front, or do you want to be one just working together and waiting for that opportunity later in the race?
Well, every driver likes to qualify at the front if they possibly can. And you're right about multi-car teams. You know, so much opportunity for slipstreaming here at Monza that might be an element to play with. But in the end, whether you start first or last, 4 hours is still 4 hours, and you won't know until the checkered flag falls just exactly how well you've got your race set up. Now, of course, the race setup, unlike in the real world, doesn't have to be worked out in free practice or qualifying. You do that. We've already had test races. But with cars out on track and the 20 minutes already starting to count down, it's time for you and us to try and get used to the new liveries, the new driver lineups, because there are a lot of both to deal with. So the first thing is, where are we looking really as a benchmark time for the fast laps?
That's the thing we're going to find out very early on into the session, is that we have had some test races where they've been given a chance just to get used to the speed. There we can see one of the BMWs, so that's our first real look at it in the Virtual Series terms. And we've got 4 of those in this grid, and they're amongst some of the new entries. We have 60 arrivals compared to what we had last year. So FDA Esports team, the BMW Team GB, Axel Sports have doubled up in both classes, which they didn't do last year. Then we've got the BMW Team BS Competition, Red Bull Racing Esports as well, and then we've got D-Station also here, a familiar name to World Endurance Championship fans. So Red Bull are running that Soul Corvette, so it'll be interesting to see how they go. D-Station run the Soul Aston Martin.
And D-Station, of course, a Japanese team who've come to the World Endurance this year with an Aston Martin. And if you've seen that on the TV, what you see here is it's exactly what you would see in the Real World Endurance Championship as well. So different driver lineup, but again, it is heavily Japanese orientated, their lineup. And that's what we find with a number of the teams. You know, you talked about the DS Competition BMW team. The BS in it is Bruno Spengler. So, you know, spent most of his racing career with BMW as a factory driver, and so that loyalty brings him in. And of course, you know, Porsche raced with a lot of their factory drivers and do here as well. So for instance, there are a few little wrinkles. Almost everybody will be on their own sim rig, in their own home, or in the office where they normally race from, and so they're in very familiar territory. Not quite everybody, because one of our teams is actually not just at virtual Monza, they're at actual Monza.
Yes,
and that's a real.
Couldn't be in a better place.
Well, but you know, but could they? I mean, that's potentially a big story, because Untitled Chapter, who is in the 92 Porsche, has a race this week, or a pair of races this weekend in the Carrera Cup Deutschland, which were originally scheduled to be at Nürburgring, which were washed out because of the big floods there, and the Nürburgring was used as a disaster relief area. And so that's now being put into this weekend at Monza. So he's in Monza. So his teammates could have been in the house that they normally race from, in the office they normally race from in Germany, but no, they have shipped the entire 3-man squad, lock, stock, sim rig and barrel, to Monza and set up there. So they are together in isolation somewhere else from where they would normally be. So all sorts of sort of similarities, but very different things for them to get their heads around as well.
I guess that's good if you're going to, cross-pair data and work together and do kind of team debriefs and team briefings before sessions, which, these teams have taken this very seriously. We've got that $250,000 prize pool coming into the series, which, we didn't have that at the 24-hour race last year. They've been throwing a lot of money at this year. So this is serious, and it's no surprise to see that one team has really, really gone out their way to go for the title and particularly get off to a good start. Juven as well was amongst those who won last year. So Juven's going to be one of the ones to watch, definitely.
And those two Porsches, 91 and 92, just set two pretty quick opening laps. You just saw the 91 car of Mac Backham was on top of the pile, but one of the BMWs has gone quicker. Now, this is interesting, isn't it? Because, as you said, a lot of people have gone with Porsche because it's a turnkey solution that works pretty much everywhere. But as with everything else in the real world, so in the virtual, some tracks will suit some drivers better than others. Some tracks will suit some cars better than others. Is this, quote, a BMW circuit? Well, we've got one lap in qualifying so far that makes it look like it might be, but 4 hours is different.
That's it. Yeah, it's going to be different compared to qualifying than in a 4-hour race. I think the key is taking advantage of the car which is going to suit the track you're at. So if you're going to be suited to this circuit, then make sure you go out there and get a podium at least. So that's going to be interesting to see. Some teams are going to be very, very aggressive in their approaches to some races, particularly those not in the Porsches. So yeah, I'm interested to see how that goes tomorrow.
Well, not too many of the teams have put their pro drivers in for qualifying. A lot of the time, the sim drivers teach the pro driver how to drive. Now, if that sounds fanciful, it's not, because the way that the virtual world works is not exactly the same as the real world works, as everybody discovered in the Le Mans 24 Hours Virtual last year. So you can take more liberties with curbs, for instance, than you might be able to do in the real world. So fastest lap at the moment from Dane Warren, we were just watching, third place in the Proton competition car, but still the 89 BMW, Jonas Raivio, he's the fastest man at the moment. And again, you might have a car that is exceptional on one lap on tyres. If it's that exceptional double stinting, then everybody else needs to, watch out. But there's no guarantee that that's the case.
Yeah, they're going to all be thinking about strategy tomorrow. They're going to get this one out the way first. But as you said, they're going to hand over to the esports drivers here. They're the guys that have had years of experience racing on this. A lot of pro drivers certainly joined the party last year when we were building up to the Le Mans Virtual, and have continued that for the series this year. But they're the ones who have been at this. We're looking at some of the notes we've got coming in. One of the drivers there have been playing since 2000. So,
exactly.
They were very different back then. But yeah, that just gives you an idea that there's 20 plus years experience with some of these drivers on consoles.
Absolutely.
Things like this.
And actually, you can imagine some of the drivers, Anchan Juven would be a classic example, early 20s now, would have started on Gran Turismo when he was a boy, also doing karting at the same time. And now, of course, as part of his pro career, sim racing is absolutely as important as time in the car, because it's time that you can work and develop your driving skills and the setup of the car that you don't get on track. And so the blending between the real and the virtual is effectively seamless. Some race drivers can get their head around the fact they can't feel the car, and some can do that less effectively, and that's really where the difference is. Just taking a look there at the BMW, that's the 89 car of Raivio. And again, none of the BMW liveries are, how can I say this, shrinking violets. They're all pretty good at standing out, and there's not going to be much mistaking that car, is there? That's a great looking livery. Somebody has worked on that and then taken 20 steps away from the monitor and gone, no, that still works. And he's right, even in the shadow and the mottled sunlight here, late afternoon in Monza, that still stands out really well.
And Junis is a very heavy prospect because he's a former VEC champion, so he can go well over a season. He knows how to win titles, and that's going to really help that team who are new. And of course, it's Bruno Spengler's team, but that's going to help those guys over the course of a season. Having winning championship experience is key, because it's easy to go out there and win a race. One thing to go out there and win a race, but it's another to hold your nerve over the course of a season, and VEC brings with it a good grid. This brings with it a fantastic grid.
Now there are some cracking laps being set. Fastest purple sector first of all for the 56 Porsche, then for Josh Rogers in 92, and now for Dane Warren in 88. So the Porsches have been in, changed setup, changed tyres. Here's Josh Rogers, purple first sector, so fastest of all. At least he was when that came up. Dane Warren now quicker. Josh Rogers going faster again in Sector 2. 91 and 92, of course, are the factory Porsche GT team numbers in the real world. So the fact that it says Porsche Esports team, don't think that that is just a name that somebody has written down. This is very much embedded in the Porsche factory driver program, whether you're a real world driver or a virtual driver.
Yeah, he won the Porsche Esports Super Cup last year, so Josh Rogers knows that car very well and has been successful in it, and it's no surprise to see him put out there in the first round for starters, because we're not seeing all the drivers that we're going to see throughout the season in this round. So if you're thinking, where's Jenson Button? Well, he's going to be with us throughout the season, for example. So we're going to be seeing some drivers who are not available for this round used in later rounds. That's why we have up to 5 drivers in each team.
So BMW team red line, number 71, that's gone to the top of the pile. Dane Warren with that quick lap, going quicker than him. So Kevin Siggy in the BMW was just briefly quicker, and 88 has gone quicker again. So that is the Proton competition car. Dylan Pereira, real-life Porsche Super Cup driver from Luxembourg. Charlie Collins and Dane Warren, that's the driver trio this weekend. There's been some late changes, what you may have seen published on the entry list, and we'll talk about that in the race. 3 teams have made very late driver changes, and there will be a penalty to pay on their first pit stops for that. But this BMW team red line, all 3 drivers very experienced in endurance racing. So like so many down the grid, whether as a real world fan or a virtual fan, you know all the names or not, it is packed with talent. Yeah,
Kevin Siggy, he's a McLaren Shadow winner, but he's been running in the R Factor 2 GT Pro Series. He's currently 5th in that, so he comes into this in pretty good form, and as well as that, he raced with Jota last year as well, so he's stepping down in class. But like I said, that R Factor 2 GT Pro Series, this is run on R Factor 2, so he's been practicing very hard for this, and he comes in pretty good form. So he's a very big name. He's one of the stars of the show in esports, and it's no surprise to see him in 2nd place. We're still with under 9 minutes to go in this session, but here come Red Bull up to the line.
So 111, and Dennis Lind, the man behind this team, he is their real world racer. They're currently in 12th position, but look at some of the margins. 1600s first to second. Now that is one of the bigger margins. It was 43 thousandths before, 89 thousandths down to second, 43 thousandths to third. If between 6th and 7th, 8 thousandths of a second. That's pretty impressive, consistent. Yuri Kazdorp on board the number 111 Red Bull Racing Esports machine, just been nudged out of the top 12. Yuri Kazdorp again, very experienced, hugely respected among his peers.
Yeah, he's one of the heavy hitters, definitely. He raced with Toyota Gazoo Racing at the 24-hour last year, so he would have gained some really good experience from that. But he's a Race All-Stars champion as well, and a winner in the GT Pro Series. You'll probably hear that mentioned a few times, because a lot of them have been using that to get themselves ready for the Le Mans Virtual Series. So yeah, Yuri Kazdorp, he wasn't picked out of mistake for the Toyota Gazoo Racing team last year. They were very selective in who raced for them.
Yeah, I don't think you get into a team. I don't think you get into any team on this grid by mistake. One car has not set a lap yet, and that is the GR Wolves car that has Ben Barker at the wheel. So I'm sensing, well, it says it has Ben Barker at the wheel. Whoever is due to be driving it, sensing they might have a bit of a connection issue. That car, Ben Barker, Philip Pushka and Chris McDade. No relation to Lewis McGlade, who we'll hear from
Yeah.
later.
Well, that's Esports' version of the thing won't fire up. You know, it's exactly
right.
that. So,
exactly right.
you know, we do still get problems like that. You know, it isn't everyone gets to go out there all the time. Sometimes you get a simple problem, as you know, like you would in racing, like the car won't fire up.
Yeah, well, hang on. Everybody's got a phone and everybody's got a computer. Hands up, everyone in the room who's never had a problem with either.
Yeah, exactly
right. Or indeed your own car. You know, the only reason normally you see a modern car stop by the side of the road, electronics. So here is D Station.
I was going to say, I bet you don't have any problems like that on your car, do you?
Petrol. Well, we'll move on. So D Station Racing, again, this team from Japan, raced in Japan in the Super GT Championship, still are racing in the Super GT Championship, but they've also brought this car run by Tom Ferrier's TF Sport to the World Endurance Championship. And an interesting lineup. They've got, at the wheel at the moment, Toshio Najima, they've got Yusuke Tomobayashi, and their real world pro is Portuguese driver João Paulo de Oliveira. Now, he has been racing in Japan for D Station and Kondo Racing and a number of others. Won the Formula 3 Championship, won Formula Nippon there. He's won the Super GT Championship in GT300, where D Station race. And he has raced for D Station in GT300, the lesser of, or the less powerful of the two categories. You know, he's had a near 2-decade career in Japan. He is one of the best known racing drivers in Japan, although fairly unknown relatively in Europe. But João Paulo de Oliveira, he could be a very important part of this team lineup.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how they go, and this team goes in general, because they're carrying that Seoul Aston Martin with them as well, and the Aston Martin was, you know, incredibly quick last year. So I'm interested to see how these guys go over the course of a season. Maybe they might be a team that will find their feet at the start, and we could see them particularly towards the front going towards the end of the season. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how they get off to a start.
Inside the final 5 minutes of 20 qualifying for LMGT cars for this opening race in the 2021-22 Le Mans Virtual Series. We start here in Monza. We head to Spa next month to the Nordschleife. Can you imagine Lmp2 cars there? To Sebring and then to the Le Mans 24 Hours Virtual. It's going to be, it's not going to be short on excitement. 66, we pick up, they're a long way down the order actually. There's been lots and lots of changes, lots and lots of cars now diving into the pits. The 66 car currently with Sebastian Wunsch at the wheel. He shares with Armin Binder and the Lithuanian Gustas Grimbergas, and one of a couple of Ferrari 488 GTEs. Now, we definitely expect Ferrari to be much more heavily involved in the Le Mans 24 Hours Virtual as they were last year. And in fact, fans have got a lot to thank Ferrari for, haven't they? Because there was not an R Factor 2 Ferrari before Ferrari went, oh, actually, we want to do that.
Yeah.
Well, we haven't got a car. You can have a Porsche. Yeah, right, okay.
And that birthed the FDA Esports team as well. You know, essentially after that, they've now launched the FDA Esports team. So it's not just launched the car into R Factor 2, it's launched a whole esports team, because they went, everyone else is doing it, it's time we jump on board as well. And they bring with them a very good lineup. You know, Nicholas Nielsen won at Le Mans. He's a class winner at Le Mans this year. Yep. So that team as well is pretty much unchanged to the AF Corsa team that we saw in the 24-hour last year as well. So they've got consistency in their lineup, which is always a key to some good results.
BMW Team GB we're looking at now. They've got quite a good record, not so much in endurance racing, but for a number of years in touring car racing, not least taking Andy Prio to a European Touring Car Championship and 3 consecutive World Touring Car Championships back in the early part of this century. God, that really makes it sound a long time ago, doesn't it? But great to see BMW Team GB getting involved again in this virtual race championship. And with all the star names and all the star teams that are involved, this is going to be a very high-profile series. There's no question about it.
Oh, of course. You know, like we've mentioned some of the big names, or you would have seen some of the big names in terms of the pro drivers that are entered, but the esports drivers is just as big. You know, it would fill a whole poster as well, because yeah, you can go through all the names and they've all won something somewhere. Yeah. At least. Of course, we've got some of the younger teams like Tesla, RHG Esports. They've got some real young drivers in there, so they could be a one to watch much. There's drivers in there that will be looking to prove their worth. But yeah, other than that, up and down, there's championships. Yeah, to fill a whole room, I'd say.
And of course, the R8G boss, Romain Grosjean, is racing this weekend. It's the season finale of the IndyCar series. He's in Long Beach, so I'm sure that whatever bleary-eyed hour of the morning it is, if he gets a chance, he will catch up with what's going on with the team. But it is his final IndyCar race of the series this season, so it's not beyond the bounds of possibility that we might actually see him trying to get involved a little bit and, you know, maybe see if he can argue his way into a seat at Le Mans. I mean, who knows?
Yeah, well, there has been, you know, we have been used some substitutes. So Bart Horston is coming for GR Wolves, and we also have Rene Butler, who's been subbed up from one of the esports drivers to a pro driver because he does a lot of racing around the Nordschleife, so he'll be particularly looking forward to that one. So they can use substitutes if they need to, particularly with the professional drivers.
Well, lots of cars now setting their fast laps, having left the pits a couple of laps ago on fresh tyres, and Dane Warren at the top of the pile already, but quicker by 31 thousandths as well. Now drops back a little bit, so maybe just took a little bit out of the tyres, got the Lesmos wrong. A little bit of a wide exit over the gravel there out of Varianti Ascari. Mac Backham has just said a better lap to go, second quickest. Kevin Siggy on an outlap from the pits in the 71 BMW. So it's going to be interesting to see. He's only 46 plus 12, 58,000, so half a tenth away from pole position. That might be a good shot, and Dane Warren bails on that lap and comes into the pits. With 15 seconds left, he's not going to get back out, but there are lots of new faster sector times.
Well, Ravio's just gone up to fourth, having just beaten Josh Rogers, so those two just managed to sneak across. Still no sign of Ben Barker, but this is the final laps now for everyone as we're watching Kevin Siggy.
Yeah, what's he got going? Well, it's not a better lap at the moment. The first sector down on his previous best. Checkered flag is out, so this is the last chance saloon for anybody on a lap. Are there any green sectors? Yes. As Josh Rogers not taken the checkered flag, but he has gone green in the first sector. So currently fifth in the 92 Porsche. Josh Rogers, the Tag Heuer Porsche Super Cup champion last year.
And Kasdorp's gone quicker through the second as well, and desperately needs to get himself up the order. So
that's the 111 Corvette, which is down, as you can see, in 14th spot. So there's Josh Rogers, 92 Porsche, sharing with Anchan Juven and Tom Oostgaard. Again, all hugely experienced in Porsches. They normally race together for the at the Coanda facility in Germany, and now here trackside in Monza. And somebody just staying out of the way there has completed their lap. They're on a slow lap, but let's see if Josh Rogers can make this work. Second sector was not as good. How close was it? He was only a tenth away from the best, and
well,
yeah, okay. When your tyres have maybe had enough and you just give it everything into the parabolica, that can be the end result. Let's see who else has got a decent lap going. Not too much going to happen, I don't think.
Is that
Kevin Siggy? Did he just jump up to the top of the pile?
Yes,
he did on his last lap. So Kevin Siggy taking pole position in the 71 BMW. That's a big first blow, isn't it, for the Redline team, BMW team Redline, the Luxembourg crew. And Kevin Siggy taking that pole position for the LMGTE field. So he will lead away from the 88 Porsche, that's the Proton competition car. Then 91 are first the Porsche GT team cars, and the 89 BMW. So two BMWs, two Porsches in the top four, and the Porsches continue their 5th, 6th, 7th, next BMW and 8th. The Ferrari, 51 in 9th position, so that's best of the Ferraris, and Yuri Kasdorp ending up in 12th. He did improve a little, but probably not going to write that down as one of his best days.
That's an exciting entrance, isn't it, for the BMW? We didn't see any last year, and they come straight in. And I mean, they're in very safe hands with the Redline team, and that lineup altogether is very strong.
Well, you know, you've got to choose the right weapon for the entire job, haven't you? And whether the BMW turns out to be the championship winning car, well, we'll only know after the checkered flag in the 24 Hours of Le Mans Virtual. So there are the times. BMW team Redline by 21 thousandths of a second. Not just last gasp, but by the slenderest of margins as well. What's that? Crossing the line at 250 kilometers an hour, it's probably the distance between the bumper and the back of the front wheel, something like that. And the GR Wolves Racing number 87 car, unfortunately not getting out and setting a time at all. So GR Wolves with lots of work to do. They will start 14th and 17th in the LM GTE class. And of course, they will start behind the LMP2 field, and the LMP2 squad, work squads, will all go out and do their qualifying runs now. But like you say, Chris, you know, for BMW, coming in, or for the teams running the BMWs, coming in like this and just going, okay, we are right on the money. Porsche, well known, well understood. You can, you know, pretty much go to half a dozen internet sites and find an absolutely spot-on setup to start your 911 with. But the BMW teams have really worked hard. And whether it's top-end power, slipstreaming, or the aerodynamics of the car, we'll have to wait and see whether it translates into race performance as well.
Yeah, and they've got a strong lineup across the board. You know, their pro drivers, Rudy Van Buren, who everyone knew when he won that McLaren Shadow, and Lorenzo Colombo as well, who does FIA Formula 3. So they've got a good mixture in their pro drivers who have good esports experience, and Lorenzo, of course, coming in with that that sprint racing experience, which could be an interesting addition. But he's a young guy, so he does a lot of esports in his free time. So, but yeah, they've got two heavy hitters, and they've come in with the BMW. No one really knew how it was going to go. There you go. Straight to the top. So
well, there we go. Exactly right. So now suddenly after this, everybody's going to be going, oh, I might just go and try a bit. You know, and that's how it grows. You know, and the more people that work with it, the more people that run the car and race the car, the more people understand about it. You know, you look at something like a racing Mini, they've been going around for 50 years. Everybody knows how to make them go quickly now, and it just improves the breed. So, yeah, the more people that race Porsches, the better Porsches get, the better they're understood, and it'll be the same with the BMW. And hopefully with the Ferraris as well, and of course the Corvette, you know, and the Aston Martin. We've just got the single entry here in our Le Mans series, but we've got to hope that we'll see a few more of them maybe coming to Le Mans as well. And there will be teams who want to run specific manufacturer cars when they're looking at a Le Mans entry. Well, here are a host of our drivers getting ready for Lmp2 qualifying. And of course, although you've qualified now, if this was a World Endurance weekend at Monza, the GTE drivers would then go away and they'd sit down with the teams and analyse all the data. What they're going to do now is they'll go off and practice at Indianapolis for an hour to try and tune out their aerodynamic imbalance, or they'll go and work on different tyre setups. They'll go and work on. They will not leave their rigs. They will be working into the night to try and get everything ready for tomorrow's race in a way that in the real world you just can't. Yeah,
of course. You know, that they've got the leisure of doing that, you know, the possibility of doing that. If you told a racing driver, you can go around for as long as you like. Where do you want to go next? And they'd go, okay, let's keep going. And as you can see, of course, all the cameras are on the drivers for race control as well. Yeah. Of course, we'll have a look at them every now and then, but that's so race control can see them as well. So,
and of course, that's so that we can then see their girlfriends phoning them up when they're on Twitch because they're locked out of the flat and all that kind of stuff.
Well, there is an empty chair there somewhere, so someone's done a runner. Some look busier than others, don't they?
Well, and I think actually for real world racing fans, that was some of the novelty and some of the delight actually of the Le Mans 24 Hours Virtual last year. You know, remember when we saw the hot swapping of the driver's seat and thought, oh my, you know, actually in a stint, in a race, hot swapping out the seat because the controls aren't working, and not only found out that he had borrowed a sim rig from a friend and had it in the room, but that he'd actually gone to the effort of practicing how to swap one out for the other and vice versa, just in case. Now, it's that level of dedication that really, you know, just marks how hard this is to perform in. You can't just rock up and give it a go. Although, having said that, there's there might be a feeling perhaps among some of the fans that, okay, well, this is great for the pro drivers, pro sim racers, pro teams. What about everybody else? Well, Chris, later on today, we are going to show for the very first time a way, actually potentially, that non-pro sim racers or actual racing drivers can get involved and can start to climb the ladder. Because in addition to the Le Mans Virtual Series, we've got the Le Mans Virtual Cup. So the parallel here is the European Le Mans Series is the sort of stepping stone up to the World Endurance Championship, and before that is the Michelin Le Mans Cup, which again is a European-based race series with LMP3 and GT3 cars. So teams graduate from a national championship or a regional championship to come to the Le Mans Cup. Then the temptation is dangled in front of them. Well, if you can do this, how about the European Le Mans Series and then your LMP2 cars as well as LMP3 and GTs? And if you can do that, then, well, an LMP2 car in European Le Mans is the same as LMP2 car at Le Mans and in the World Endurance Championship. And so there you get the kind of ladder of progression. And the deal with the Le Mans Virtual Cup is that you can go online and you can race and you can qualify. And at the end of the series, the top 2 point scoring drivers, wherever they come from, and they can't already be part of the Le Mans Virtual Series, they will get a drive in the Le Mans 24 Hours Virtual in January. So that's the carrot, and that's the ladder of progression. So if you're sitting at home going, well, I could never do that because I'm not a pro, you might.
Yeah, if you put enough practice in, you might just, it's a championship as well, so it doesn't matter if you miss the first round. Of course, are going to have to get into the top split, i.e. the top 30 drivers to score the most points. But you can still go in and race in one of the lower splits as a bit of a practice as well to see how you get on. But it's going to be over 3 rounds. The top 30 then go into a super final. Combine that with the 3 rounds, points scored across the board. And then we get our top 2 which go and come and join us at the Le Mans Virtual 24 Hours. So, yeah.
And already in qualifying for tonight's race, because that is the first race at the Le Mans Virtual Cup, more than 500 gamers have qualified and are in the race. So we will show the top 30, but all the others will be racing in their own little groups, their tiers at the same time. Okay, so that's coming up later, but before that, LMP2 qualifying. Let's see who is going to take pole for the first race of the Le Mans Virtual Series here, the 4 hours at Monza. Well, those pictures just bring it all back, don't they? Le Mans 24 Hours Virtual from June last year, of course, run the same weekend, midsummer, that we would normally have had the real Le Mans 24 Hours. And it was, well, we thought at the time, hopefully, the world will be a different place. And this year, of course, it is a slightly different place. And we had the real Le Mans 24 Hours in August with fans at the track. But the demand to bring back Le Mans 24-hour Virtual was definitely there. And so here we are with the first race weekend of the Le Mans Virtual Series, which will include Le Mans 24-hour Virtual as its 5th and final race. And that will be at the Autosport International Show in the NEC in Birmingham. So particularly for British fans or anyone else who can travel through Europe at that stage, we will be presenting from there. Our studio will be at the show, and hopefully there will be a number of teams who are also there. So we've seen the GTE qualifying. Now it's time to see the LMP2 qualifying. Same deal, 1 driver per car, best lap counts. All the rest is just bar talk and a 20-minute session. And of course, because the virtual world mirrors the real world, there is a slight delay. So, so let's talk about some of the other elements. Well, when we get into the race, in fact, when you talk about the Le Mans Virtual Cup a little later, we will meet the final member of our team, of our announced team, Lewis McGlade, who was with us in Paris last year for the Virtual Le Mans. We will, in race control, have Eduardo Freitas, the voice of God from the World Endurance Championship, and Ben Roster-Turner from Motorsport Games. So they will be applying the rules and deciding whether or not real-time penalties will be applied. So much so normal, exactly as it was at Le Mans. So here, and again, you know, that the Le Mans Virtual brought teams from both worlds together in a sort of head-on collision, and everybody took a lot away. One of the things that Eduardo took away was being able to talk to the teams much more quickly than had been the case before. And I'm now struggling to think of the word that I need to think of. I'm going to have to look at my app on the phone. Discord is the word I'm looking for, which is not something we normally like to have on air. But Discord, having used it during the Le Mans Virtual to talk to the drivers individually, suddenly Discord is now absolutely, that is the platform that is used in the real world, in the World Endurance Championship pit lane and in European Le Mans and everything else, because it is so immediate. And a bit more manageable than having a massive WhatsApp group with 800 different people in it, and definitely. So everybody learned, and that's one of the things. And there were sim drivers saying, "I've just been in a debrief with 20 engineers. Is that normal?" Well, actually, yes, sometimes it is, and particularly because everybody was remote. Brendan Hartley was in New Zealand. Half the Toyota drivers were in Japan. There were drivers dotted around all over the planet. Because everybody was remote, it was a little bit like being in F1 with a massive team back at base, doing downloads and then having engineering briefings online afterwards. And so, the real world drivers learned a lot about practicing and how much you can and how much you can't do. And the sim world learned an awful lot about just how much engineering goes into making a real thing go around in circles, which is an eye opener for everybody. So it's just such a great opportunity but they're sort of parallel universes that for years have sort of existed, and now we're crossing the streams.
I think both worlds gained a lot of respect for each other, basically, particularly those who raced with Toyota Gazoo, because they used it, and I'm sure a lot of other teams did as well, which we talked about at the time, but they used it as an exercise for the team to get used to working together again, because they'd all been isolated at that point. So they gained a lot of respect for how much work those guys put in, i.e. Brendan Hartley, Kamui Kobayashi. Likewise, they put in, they gained a lot of respect because they almost had to go, you teach me how to race and how to drive. Well, and that was what some of the drivers, they kind of, threw their pride to one side and went, right.
Well, that's exactly what we're saying to some of the sim races. How do you tell Fernando Alonso and Jenson Button they're doing it wrong? Yeah. Well, you just have to, because that, it's no different from if you were teaching them to juggle or walk on a high wire. It's not something they've got experience of. It doesn't directly translate from what they've done before. And so, as a result, that's exactly what happened. You get a 20-year-old gamer telling a multiple Formula One world champion, no, that's not going to work. Am I right? That don't wash in this world, Fernando. You got to come around and do it our way. And some of the drivers were just astonished, particularly Lmp2 drivers with Lmp2 at Le Mans. We're going, you can't do that. No, you absolutely can. And if you don't do that, if you don't hammer the curbs as if there's only one lap in the race, you will never be quick. But the car won't. Yeah, but it will. Yeah, and it was just the fact, that the teams could work together over 24 hours, being all around scattered around the world as well. And in a live race, that's not easy, is it? You're working in completely different time zones, and you're working through, speaking through something like Discord, for example. And that's why I think they gained a lot of respect. How do they do a 24-hour race scattered all around the world? We need a garage. We're all in there. And we sort of thought, okay, well, the Japanese drivers and Brendan Hartley in New Zealand will be on during the middle of the European night. No, that's not how it works. They just cycled through the way they would normally cycle through. So it's, oh goodness, whatever the time is in the morning, bleary-eyed and into the rig to try and slap yourself awake and bring up to speed. But you're absolutely right. Toyota saw that as a fantastic opportunity to keep their professional team doing what it would otherwise have been doing. And I think we will see a lot of that again. There is no Toyota Gazoo racing as yet, but I would be utterly astonished if they didn't have a couple of cars lined up ready to go for the 24 hours of Le Mans Virtual, because it's the middle of the winter. They need to put the team together and get them working together again, and otherwise, there's no chance of doing that in January anywhere in Europe. So, having had our real world interruption in the virtual world, let's see if we can. All right, let's take. Okay, so we're not quite ready to go to Lmp2 qualifying just yet. So we have something else to show you.
Le Mans Virtual Series explained. The event will be run on the R-Factor 2 platform and includes a 38-car field, which will be up to more than 50 for the series finale, multi-class driving between Le Mans prototypes and GTEs. There'll be driver changes, dynamic weather and day-to-night transitions. The schedule will begin here at the Temple of Speed at Monza before we head to the 6 hours of Spa in October, the 8 hours of Nordschleife in November and the 6 hours of Sebring to round out the year. But the season finishes at the 24-hour Le Mans Virtual at the Autosport International Show in January. The rules of the series include that each team must contain at least one professional driver, which will be up to 2 for Le Mans. Each driver will have to meet minimum and maximum driver times. Teams will work to create their own setups to optimise performance. Full simulation includes the use of fuel and tyres. Mechanical failures such as engine and brake failures will be included. Damage will affect the car but can be repaired in the pit stops, and stewards will oversee on-track action and will apply penalties if required. The prize pool is $250,000 across the series, half of which will be in the series itself and half of which will be applied to the 24-hour finale. It'll be split equally between each category, and the top 10 finisher receives prize money according to the positions in the series standings.
So there you are. That is the Le Mans Virtual Series. That's where we're going. That's what we're doing. And yes, they really are going to race 8 hours around the Nordschleife.
That's terrifying.
Well, you know, you could only do it in the sim world, couldn't you? In the middle of November, you know, I'm not quite sure. You know, it would be ice and snow and hail and sleet. Yeah, mind you, we get that in June, so yeah, no real difference. All right, well, let's look at some of the talent that we've got lined up in our LMP2 field. Now, numerically, it is larger. There are 17 GTE Pro cars, and there are 21 LMP2 cars. As I said before, they are all using exactly the same vehicle. It's the Oreca 07. That's the go-to car in LMP2 in the real world and here also in the virtual world. But there are a lot of extremely good pro drivers and a lot of absolutely stunningly good sim racers, pro sim racers in these LMP2 lineups. There you can see our driver field. And again, it's interesting, isn't it? It's like walking in the evening, you know, out walking down the road and just looking in everybody's front room and going, oh, that's right. And I'm sure, I'm sure a lot of gamers at home and sim racers at home will be looking at setups. They'll all have their favourites and they'll all follow them on Twitch and they will know, you know, what they're using, the seat, the rig and everything else. But it's sort of how you arrange it around yourself. And like every racing driver, a sim racer wants everything just so. And that's all part of that comfort zone that you put yourself in.
Yeah, I guess that's probably one of the only differences, isn't it? That you're not jumping into a car that might be slightly suited for someone else, where you have to kind of meet in the middle on driving styles and things like that. Yeah. This is all, you know, perfect for me. This is my rig. So you know, yeah, unless we, of course, when we get to the 24-hour. Could be a different story for some of our teams, but we'll speak more about that at the time. But, you know, some big names in this in terms of pro drivers for this round. I mean, across the board, there are some huge names which you would have seen on social media. But one of the teams to watch for me is Bike Collars in the number 4, who did very well last year. They finished second. They come out with a very similar lineup. Jesper Pedersen, Marcel Chinchich, and they've brought Sergio Sette Camera with them as well, who, of course, races in the FIA Formula 3 Championship. We've got the likes of Nestor Girolami, who's been subbed in, WTCR driver, Beitske Visser, Timmy Hansen as well, which we did not see him last year, so good to see him. Job van Uyter, Yiffy, you know, of course, we will remember what happened to him at the 24 hours, and Ryan Vita, Will Stevens, and then we've got the likes of Danny Jürgen and Jonathan Aberdeen, who's another sub in for this round as well. But we have cars on track, Martin.
Yeah, we have got cars on track, so LMP2 qualifying is underway, and the cars just heading out of the pits for their first run, and probably the second lap on the tyres is going to be just as quick as the first, maybe even a third, but there is time to do a 2-lap run or a 3-lap run, come back into the pits, make a setup change if you feel it's needed, although by this stage, any sim racer worth his salt should have spent an awful lot of hours getting the setup right. It's not quite the same as in the real world where we'd have spent 3 or 4 hours doing free practice and then dial in or attach the qualifying setup. So they should be absolutely nailed on and ready to go. And there might be a slight question of whether your exit from the pit lane is going to put you in the right position to pick up a tow from somebody. Essentially, probably here, out of Ascari, down the Rettilinea and to the Parabolica. That is most likely to be the place where a tow might work for you. Anywhere else, it's going to slightly compromise the grip in the car, and they're in a fairly low drag running lineup anyway, so you just have to be a little bit careful at a track like Monza in a car that's so area dependent about how you try and work the tow, work the slipstream.
We were watching there the number 22 Rebellion, very strong lineup in terms of their sim drivers as well, 2 Formula Sim Racing world champions in their lineup, and then we've got Yifa Yi as well, who brings a lot of experience, young driver as well, so he's going to be very experienced in esports. Jack Aitken is another one of their pro drivers who we'll see a little bit later in the season.
And Yifa Yi last weekend in Spa won with WRT the European Le Mans Series, the real European Le Mans Series. So he is now the reigning Asian Le Mans Series champion and European Le Mans Series champion, and but for 5.5 miles would have won Le Mans. And with Louis Delatraz, who won virtual Le Mans last year in that car, that would have been the first ever and possibly only ever virtual Le Mans winner, real Le Mans winner. And of course, he won virtual Le Mans in June before he'd actually raced at Le Mans. So he raced at Le Mans then in September last year, and then raced again at Le Mans in August this year. So he's been twice. Once empty, not a soul in the place. Second time, 50,000 fans a day. So some fans, but yeah, not the 250,000, 350,000 fans. The baying madness that we're used to seeing at Le Mans. So he's won virtual Le Mans. He's almost won the real thing. He's raced at Le Mans twice, and he's still never seen a crowd. I mean, this is the world in which we live, and hopefully next year he will actually see what Le Mans looks like. He's been to Le Mans twice. He's never done the drivers' parade. I mean, that's an eye-opener in itself.
And the grid is a place to be, isn't it, when you're getting ready to go for the start of a race? So, it's an absolutely fantastic atmosphere. But these guys are definitely going to be ones to watch for me. The the GPX Rebellion Esports team throughout this season, and Yuri and Marcel as well. They're second and fourth in the R Factor 2 GT Pro Series coming into this as well. So, 2 guys who race against each other a lot, work together a lot, and they both come in good form as well.
So 22 was at the top of the pile. That's the GPX Rebellion Williams, and now your dark horse. Well, I don't think it's a dark horse if you're tipping them before we even get into the first qualifying session. Your favourites, the Floyd Bicollage Burst team, car number 4. Again, Sergio Seti Camara, he's a young single-seat star, racing Formula E as well as Formula 3. Jesper Pedersen and Jenny Simoncic, 2 hugely experienced, very quick sim racers. So again, as we saw in the LMGTE field, it will be the sim racers who are doing the qualifying, because they are the guys, as in the real world, the real pro drivers would be doing the outright, death or glory qualifying lap. So again, things you can do in a sim racer. That little trip across the gravel on the exit there of Lmp2, that would have been a very major heart-in-mouth moment in a real car. Sort of almost didn't notice it in the virtual world.
Well, they pulled it last year, didn't they? And they were very unfortunate not to win it, really. They hit problems, of course, throughout the race, which potentially cost them a win. But, Jesper Pedersen they were all amongst that lineup. He was second, of course. Their 2 sim drivers were amongst those lineups. And Jerne, who's a Formula Sim Racing World Champion as well. He's already won that this year. So he's already a champion this year, and he's currently leading the GT Pro Series as well. So he's basically winning everything he's doing this year. So it would be no surprise to see him going to put that thing on pole position. But he's in a very, very competitive grid. Interesting to see that Timmy Hansen has gone out for a play in the Red Bull car as well. But
right now, in theory, it should have been Timmy Hansen. In practice, it's not, because Timmy Hansen is doing Nitro Rallycross, and that is now Andras Kirali. So he is now driving the number 11 Red Bull Esports car, again with Alex Siebel and Dennis Jordan. So he's a very late change. The other very late change in the class is at Jota, the number 38 car. Was due to have Mike Epps at the wheel. It's got Jesse Krohn, who races BMWs a lot in the US, with Ibrahim Khan and Ferris Stanley. Ferris Stanley is also a non-full season driver, at least at the moment. And there are a few non-full season drivers. Nestor Girolami in the number 5 Williams Esports car. He can't do all the races because he's got other clashing commitments. So there are a few who have got that position. But, yeah, so Jesse Krohn, he's the pro driver in the 38 Jota car. So we thought Ibrahim Khan was probably going to be the man who qualified. Because we have had a slight timing and scoring glitch, our computers here are not showing us exactly who's in. So we're just going to have to go with the car. And at the moment, it is the Floyd By-Collars Burst car that is fastest of all. 1700s ahead of number 2, GPX Williams. And Roman Grosjean's team, their second car, number 18, the RAG Esports car. That is Joop van Uitert, Thibaut Casubon and Thomas Petitjean. That car is currently third fastest. Van Uitert, of course, a real-world LMP2 ace, raced in the European Le Mans Series in the last couple of seasons and at Le Mans. So in fourth place, 444 Alpha Industries By-Collars Burst. So By-Collars at the moment, top of the pile with car number 4, and fourth place with 444. And that is Luke Browning, Nuno Pinto and Gianmarco Fiducci. So that car, fourth place. RAG Esports car number 8. That is Gordon Much, Erhan Yajovski and Hamial Al-Sabtian. Who did we think might have been running that one? We weren't entirely sure who was likely to go in there. So again, we just have to go with the times. 1700 separating first to second, 1800s back to third. Some fairly sizable margins here, certainly compared to the GTE qualifying. Yellow's out, so who has had an issue here? Well, they've just been withdrawn actually, so it looks like it's clear. Somebody perhaps has just gone off a little bit, I know, in Ascari. That would tend to be your unhappy hunting ground.
This is one of the new teams as well. This is one of 5 new teams. We've got Williams, Red Bull, ARC Bratislava, Yas Heat, and then Fordzilla as well. And they have, and amongst those, Nuno Pinto, who is in the Le Mans Esports series, of course. So it's good to see him here and racing. And, you know, they've got Alex Palou in that car throughout the season, along with Luke Browning as well, who's a reigning British F4 champion and did very well in the esports version of that championship as well. But Nuno Pinto raced with Panis Racing last year, so we do recognise the name in Le Mans virtual terms, albeit in a different team last year. And he was runner-up in the 2019 McLaren Shadow as well. Gianmarco Fiducci, 8th in the Formula Pro Championship, and I believe we're about to see what the yellow was for, Martin.
Yeah, Red Bull spin, we gather. And is this... Oh, that's out of Lmp2. Yeah, that's a full-on Code Brown moment there in the real world, isn't it? Luckily, the sim racing driver just gets a little bit of the whirlies, but not the full experience.
Let go of the wheel, basically.
Yeah.
Because... yeah, you get a lot of force feedback on some of these.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what someone said to me earlier when I had to go in the rig. Just make sure I had a similar moment. Yeah, just make sure you let go of the wheel next time. So
fastest at the moment, Jurni Simoncic in the number 4 Floyd By-Collars Burst car. Michi Hoyer in the 444 By-Collars car. So that's the one he shares with Jonathan Aberdine and David Rochik. So Michi Hoyer is doing the qualifying there. And Marcel Chinchich is third fastest in the number 22 car. Thibaut Casubon in the number 18 Roman Grosjean car, RAG car. He is in 14th place, 4th place. Too many ones in that sentence. And Ferris Stanley is in the Jota car. So that currently lies in 5th place. So those cars all out on track at the moment. The ones that are greyed out are currently in the pit lane. So you can see a lot of changes, actually. There's cars popping up all over the place. Just up into 9th place is the number 5 Williams car. Peter Breichak at the wheel of that one. Just 2 thousandths behind the 8th place car. That's insanely close, isn't it?
Yeah, racing a GT Pro is Peter currently 11th in that championship as well. As we're going to hop on board with him. He's the lead Williams driver in that series as well. In fact, we're going to go on board with another one of the Williams. This is Marcel Chinchich in the number 22 GPX Williams Esports car. So this is our first onboard lap around Monza in an LMP2. We get to see a little bit what it's like. Very, very quick, basically.
Super fast, isn't it?
Yeah.
Currently third quickest. Down into the Rog here. Hop the chicanes both sides. And then piling on the speed down towards the first of the two Lesmos. Breakdown change into Lesmo 1. And then exit of Lesmo 2, really critical. There's a potential passing place in traffic down the inside into Lesmo 2. You will always catch the driver in front unawares, which is not always a good thing.
Not for the other driver, no.
No, or for yourself quite often. Dropping down under the old banking, and everybody there who has ever been to Monza will have to go and see the banking. And then through Variante Ascari, named after the great Alberto Ascari, who was killed there testing a friend's Ferrari sports car. And then down the long back straight. And if you look at the left-hand side of your picture, you will see the neatly manicured hedges that line the track there. Not too many tracks have nice privet hedge down the main straight. And into the Parabolica, lately renamed Parabolica Alboreto after the late Michele Alboreto. So we will have to try and remember to use that more often than not. And again, across the straight, the finish line is right on the exit almost of the Parabolica, whereas the start line is actually a lot closer to the first corner. So the run down to the first turn from the start is always a short one as you get into the Rettifilo. Again, looking here at the run from Curva Grande down to the Roggia.
This looks like red line we're picking up now. They're currently in 12th place with the car we are looking at as they make their way now through the Lesmos. And red line, and you know, of course, we know that they're a very, very quick team, and they bring with them some very quick drivers as well across the board. They've got the likes of Atse Kirchhoff and Bono Quies, who are both extremely, extremely talented. Atse's a multiple world record holder, and Bono won out in Vegas in the Formula E as well. So
multiple dollar winner as well.
Yeah.
Well, Atse Kirchhoff at the wheel of that Team Redline car. 11th and 12th, look at the time difference between them. That is the time to the leader, 0.536, and, 0.536. There are no thousandths between the Yas Heat and the Team Redline car. So those are the gaps back to the leader. So first to second, 1 thousandth between those two cars, between the number 4 by Collers Burst car and the 444 by Collers Burst car. So Michi Hoyer, 1 thousandth of pole position. I wonder exactly how frustrated he was with that lap. 1,000. Of course, if he'd been 1,000th quicker, he would only have tied the time. He still wouldn't have had pole. 0.02 of a second. It's got to be in there somewhere. 5.5 minutes remaining. And
you know that those two teams, of course, have the leisure, being almost sister teams, to work together on the build-up to events. And that's certainly showing now. Quick replay we're going to see coming through the second Lesmo. Whoa, and that was the Bi-Collis car, wasn't it, as well?
So which one is that? 4 or 444?
That was the one leading the way. So
that's number 4, okay. Okay, interesting. Now, was that another quick lap or was that an in lap?
Well, it wasn't a lap in the end, was
it?
No.
Well, let's take a look at the leaderboard. So first to second, 1,000th of a second difference. Third, 1,200s behind second. A 10th back then to fourth. 97 thousandths to 5th, 18 thousandths further back is 6th, 84 thousandths to 7th, 2 thousandths between 7th and 8th. Panis Racing in 7th at the moment ahead of the RHE Esports car. A whole 17 thousandths back to 9th place, and then 2 thousandths back to 10th. And as we pointed out, between Atse Kirchhoff and Isaac Gillison, 0 thousandths, 11th to 12th, 49 and 1, 2, 3. However, everything just jumped around because the number 8 RHG Esports car has gone to the top of the pile. Erhan Jajovski has gone quicker than Marcel Chinchich by 11 hundredths of a second. So those two by Colles cars, car number 4 and car number 444, will need to find a little bit more if they want to lock out the front row of the grid.
Yeah, world's fastest gamer and McLaren Shadow finalist is Erhan Yuyovsky, so no surprise to see him towards the front as well. And they both remain part of the squad as well. They worked, he and Matthias worked together as well in the Le Mans Virtual. So some continuity. I'll get it out in the end.
It's there somewhere.
I had to look around a bit, but yes, some continuity in the team lineup there. So yeah, good to see those guys back together. Erhan has jumped up to the top, so now it's over to the by Colles cars to try and respond, and we pick one of them up now. Ooh. Coming down towards the first corner.
Now we ought to also look at Marcel Chinchich in the number 22 machine, GPX Williams, purple first sector. That's the car he shares with Yuri Toman and Yifi Yi. So currently that car is in, scroll that way, and that is in 4th place, but he has gone purple in sector 1. Green first sector, so better than their previous best from Yuyovsky and from Michi Hoyer. And it is not a better second sector, in fact, not as good as what he's done previously for Chinchich. So he has either made a mistake or being caught up with somebody. The pole man, by the way, at the moment, Yuyovsky is in the pit lane with 2.5 minutes remaining. He could easily get out and just get one more lap.
He's come straight back out, hasn't he? Yeah, so that was a quick...
oh, here we go, Michi Hoyer. He was stung by being 1,000th off pole originally. He's gone green in the first sector. He is purple in sector 2. Right behind him, Chinchich has gone green in sector 2 and 3, but has not moved up a position. There is a green second sector for Simoncic, who's in 2nd place. So who's going to win the battle of the by Colles cars at the moment? Unless he blows it in the final element, Michi Hoyer could be going to the top of the pile.
Yeah, this is the 444 up to the line and goes to 2nd, so
6 thousandths away. Yeah. So what has Michi Hoyer got in the final sector of the lap? Will he go to the top of the pile? He does not. He goes 2nd now. No, he does. Hang on a minute. Oh, that's all just changed.
He's gone to the top, yeah.
He has gone...
straight to the top, 132.742. So, wow, 25 thousandths between the top 3 with 1.5 minutes remaining. So, coming up to last laps, really, they may squeeze one more in, but this is really going to be their last crack at it. This is what the
yellow come back, baby. Yeah, that went very quick from I've got this to I really don't have this at all. Okay, so the on-screen timing screen with 1 minute left to go says that Michi Hoyer is on top. My computer timing screen argues with it. So, however...
Whoa, there we go. There was another one.
All the sectors we saw looked very good indeed. So... at the moment, number 4 by Colles car from the number 8 R8G, and then the 444 by Colles. What's left inside the final minute? 40 seconds on the clock. And
there we
again, there'll be yellows out, and unfortunately, that means that anybody who's just starting sector 2, and a replay here.
That was a big one, wasn't it?
Yeah,
I think the yellow's been retrieved now, but
yeah, they go very quickly.
It goes very quickly in esports, doesn't it?
Yeah. So Yuyovsky with a better first sectors coming in, but is anybody going to do it before the line? Checkered flag will be out in 5 seconds.
This is one of the Williams teams that's just
sneaked across.
Yeah.
Now, did the car behind get? Yes, it did, because the checkered flag's only now just showing.
It's going to be between if in terms of anyone that can steal pole, it's GPX, Williams, or R8G, because they're still out there somewhere as well. But this is going to be the one we're going to follow. They've got just over 2.5 tenths to find to pole.
So Yuyovsky in car number 8 was 19 thousandths off rather, but in 22, Marcel Chinchich, is 1/4 of a second away. Is he going to find that? What about the Panis car? Can they find some of that 4 tenths that the number 65 car is behind and move themselves up into the top 2 rows? Well, who's got quicker laps going? in number 70, the Real Team Hydrogen Red Line car, Jeffrey Rietveld has got a quicker lap going. Let's see who else is going to produce the goods. Well, not sure that we're going to see a big improvement from a GPX Williams Esports car. Let's see what Chinchich has got.
If not, it's going to be R8G, isn't it? That go and take pole position, the first pole position of the year. That's the car we are looking at now, and that's a big result for R8G. But at the same time, not a huge surprise to see them where they are with Erhan Yayovsky in the car.
And right at the death as well as the checkered flag came out. So Erhan Yayovsky taking it. And just Panis Racing still to complete the lap. 4200s back.
And they've got a strong lineup esports-wise across the board as well. Gordy Much, who is their pro driver, Autosport Pro Invitational winner, but he was also the inaugural Motorsport UK Sim champion as well. So he knows what he's doing. He's good on track. He's done some GT5 racing over the years as well. 2 years ago, he raced in their GT5 Challenge, but also he does a lot of esports racing as well. So across the board, there's a few lineups like that where you might not look at their pro drivers as a huge household name, but it's the experience they've got of both real life and esports racing, which is going to make those teams very... Oh, there we go.
That's a little slight glitch there.
Interesting exit.
All right, so, yeah, very close indeed right at the end there, and just creeping across the line to start the lap in time. Erhan Yayovsky taking pole position for the number 8 machine, R8G Esports. So Romain Grosjean, when he wakes, I think he'll be well awake. He'll be in the middle of his Friday currently in Long Beach. Will be, I'm sure, alerted to that. So be very happy with that. And really close as well with the Bicoles cars and the Williams team. That's shaping up to be a very entertaining battle as we get into our race. And of course, that's qualifying. And you talked about the pro drivers. We're used to, particularly in GTE and also in LMP2 in the World Endurance Championship and the European Le Mans Series, pro-am driver lineups. And as with any endeavor in life, you are only as strong as your weakest link. And in this, drivers who actually drive race cars tend to be the weaker link compared to drivers who really drive sim race cars. So the real world drivers' abilities are going to be absolutely critical, particularly when we get into the longer and the longer and the longer races. And we talked about this going into Le Mans Virtual last year, is the real world drivers may not be quite as within the thousandth on the sim, but they are more used to the long endurance races and hydrating and looking after your body and your mind and forcing yourself to go away and go to sleep and not just watch it and not looking at socials and all the other stuff. Yeah. And again, in 4 hours at Monza, that's not going to be an issue, but as we get into 6-hour races, 8-hour races, and of course, at the end of the season, the 24 hours of Le Mans Virtual, all of that body maintenance and mind maintenance is going to be their biggest strength, as well as their speed in the car. So you've got that interesting combination of being able to preserve yourself, but also get the absolute fine amount out of the car. So plenty more to do this evening. We've seen the qualifying, but we also have more coming up in terms of our first race for the Le Mans Virtual Cup. But we've got something else to show you right now.
Well, we are about to enter a brand new era of Le Mans Virtual. We've seen the Le Mans Virtual 24-hour. We've now introduced the Le Mans Virtual Series, but we are about to introduce the Le Mans Virtual Cup Series, which you at home can take part in. We've had over 500 entries for this evening, the first round. How it's going to work, it's going to be 4 rounds. The top 30 are the ones that we're going to be watching tonight, the top 30 qualifiers for this first round. Everyone's going to score points. Of course, the more points you get for being in those top splits. So you get a certain amount for point just for being in each split, and then you get 35 points for taking the win as well. Then at the end of 3 rounds, when we get after the Nordschleife round, we are going to take the top 30 and put them into a super final, and then they're going to race in that super final at round 4 of the Le Mans Virtual Series, and then we will, of course, add up all the points at the end, and then the top 2 are going to join us in the Le Mans Virtual 24-hour, where the Le Mans Virtual Series ends next January at the NEC as well. Lewis McGlade has now joined us. Lewis, you know, the Le Mans Virtual Series, very, very exciting, but the Le Mans Virtual Cup is going to be very, very exciting as well. So it looks like we are pretty much already underway. It's going to be a 45-minute race. We will talk setup in just a second, but let's go through the grid. We have Sean Arnold, who started on pole, Damien Scauron, Corentin Guinness, Gabor Havesi, Jimmy Nisula. Then we have David Kaloskai, Darius Andre, Luca D'Amelio, then Christopher Hogfeldt, Zoltan Boda, Evan Marion, Martin Maguli, Leonardo Pupo, then Stefano Zanrosso, Davide Arduni, Moritz Mel, Nico Nuninghoff, Gergo Baldi, Janos Prasok, Casper Nizio, Francesco Santagaida, then Remy Delorme, then we have Dragan Nikic, Leo Booley, behind that is Marco Sanfilippo, Simon Di Mori, and then Cameron Barker, George Whitehouse, Christian Lazaro also in there as well. Lewis, you've been keeping your eyes peeled. Of course, these are a little bit different to what we've been seeing, because these are the Lmp3 cars. What I just read out to you was, of course, all the drivers and the starting grid as well. It was a standing start, and we now pick the race up. We're a couple of laps in, and we're already battling away. So they're trying to get those top points, and it's going to be, of course, big points for the winners as well. 35 points for the winners, 32 for second, 28 for third, and then we work our way down 1 point for 30th, but they do get a minimum amount of points just for being in this top split. Lewis, tell us a little bit about these, because this is the Lmp3 car, and we're going to be racing them as we go side by side there. Almost a little bit of contact. Their numbers are their grid positions. Oh dear. Well, we were watching there the 7, which is Darius Andre there in the all blue. He went down the inside, and it did result into some contact. So hopefully we'll be able to look at that again in just a second. But Lewis, tell us a little bit about these Lmp3 cars.
Yeah, they're really, really tricky cars to drive, as we can see quite clearly there. They're V8 powered, about 450 brake horsepower. Very, very tricky. I'd say these are actually arguably harder than the LMP2s. They're not quite as fast, but that's lacking in the downforce department. They've certainly got plenty of power. And running around here, obviously you were saying there that the numbers that we've got on the cars represent their qualifying position. So one started from pole position, etc. What it did mean that when we were looking at the start there, that Davide Ardrina had started from 15th position and had worked his way up into 7th over the opening lap of the race. Now, these run from a standing start at the beginning. Unfortunately, we did miss it, but regardless, it shows how tricky things have been over the starting portion of this race. Naturally, that run down into turn 1 we expect to be very difficult.
Well, it looks like we've got someone that's broken away from the field, and then we've got a chasing pack. And then this is the fight a little bit further down the field we were watching. It looks like we might have a slightly damaged car behind that as well, as they make their way now in towards the first chicane. So we've got the number 4 there of Gabor Havesi, who was dropped down a few places. Really, you want to keep yourself in the race, Lewis. score some decent points and just get some points in the bag here at round 1. You don't have to go and win this round because you're going to get 3 more rounds after, but you want to get some decent points to get you off to a good start to take the pressure off going into the next rounds.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a 45-minute race here. We're focused on Darius Andre with Havesi behind, and clearly showing it's been a fairly intense battle. The car that we saw backwards, that was one of the burst cars. Now, of course, for burst by Collis, things have gone fairly well in the previous session of the Le Mans Virtual Series. However, this session, at least it did look like a burst to me, clearly had very, very severe issues indeed. This is our race leader, which is the number 5, Jimmy Nasula. Normally races for Satellite Racing, which is an American team. You can see there, it says VRS on the side, so sponsored by the same sponsor that covers some of the Coanda cars as well, Virtual Racing Schools. And this is a team that's very, very interesting, that they've got real-world partnerships as well. They actually have their own real-world team. They're trying to get drivers into the real world, all run by Matt Strand. Very, very interesting indeed. And Jimmy Nasula starting from 5th, clearly making the most of this LMP3.
Yeah, it could have been a slightly hectic start, but there you can see he's off and away, isn't he? Now it's just holding his nerve. Let's talk pit stops, because it is a 45-minute sprint in terms of LMP3 racing, but we are expecting pit stops throughout the race. Tell us a little bit about that, Lewis.
Yeah, so fixed setup, so they've been locked in on their setups. They're not allowed to adjust anything, which I'm sure we'll go into how difficult that is in itself. What it does mean is they have to start on 50 litres of fuel. Now, this car burns roughly 2.9 to 3 litres of fuel per lap, and that across the race distance, roughly 26 laps over the 45-minute running, means that they need about 80 litres to get through. 80 litres is slightly more than 50, and so they do have to make a pit stop normally in the second half of this race. Look at this battle coming through Curva Grande. Very, very close indeed.
Yeah, down towards the second chicane. Oh, someone locking up a little bit ahead there. We can see the number 10 passing the 6. So that's Boda there passing Kalashai. So that's someone going forwards and someone going backwards, certainly from their starting position, isn't it? The number 6 now down in 11th. So this is your 10th place battle we're watching coming in towards second Lesmo. Let's go back to a replay then. So this was the crash, Lewis. Talk us through this.
Yeah, so Scarron's just over the curbs. He's going to get hit on the rear, I think, just a little bit. Yeah, just trying to switch position. That was Martin Mugli just trying to get back down the inside of Scarron, and then the classic sim racing thing of, you know, if there's a yellow flag, that means you've got to go faster, and just drove straight into it. Unfortunately, obviously, it's super tight, departing there, and gets hit again for good measure.
One more for luck. Yeah.
That one was, I think it was Darius Andre. I'm not really too sure who
it was, it was Darius Andre. Well, we're almost 10 minutes into this race now. As we can see, another battle just behind this coming in towards Parabolica. Here is the number 6. We are watching now, making their way out of Parabolica. Someone running wide in the background as well, which is going to be a change of position, but the positions are now to your left. So Nasula, D'Amelio, then we have Hoekveld as well, Kalashai. Go ahead, Lewis.
There's a big crash in the background there, just coming out of Parabolica. I'm not sure which one it was, but enormous crash. I think it might have been maybe Moritz Mell or someone.
Got Kalashai. Oh, we got a bit of contact here as well coming in towards the first chicane. Just a quick note, of course, the race starts when it starts. We don't wait for everyone to be ready and joined in. The race goes at the exact time it's due to start. So that's why when we joined it, it is already live because of our qualifying session slightly overrunning a little bit with between the two sessions. Of course, we had a little bit of an issue, and that's why we've missed the start of this race. But this is the number 16 of Maurice Mell, moving up the order nicely. He's to the left of your screen there, and Mell is making his way up the order. That's going to be a change for 11th place, I believe, now as they come in towards second Lesmo. We've got Nizio, Zan Rosso and San Filippo all behind this as well. But our lead for Nisula is 4.3 seconds over Luca D'Amelio. So a good progress from Luca there as they now come up towards the Ascari chicane, and still heavily defending here is Mel from Andre. Andre doing his best to try and get back through, and he's hit the curb there. That's going to send him slightly offline, and that's going to lose him a little bit of time.
Yeah, it's so easy to do through Ascari, where you brush those curbs. The fastest way around this circuit, and this is what Martin was saying earlier, obviously is to abuse the curbs rapidly. And look at this down in the background as well. There's a big dive there.
That's Lazaro, isn't it, who started dead last in the field, and Lazaro is making his way up the order here. Well, I say dead last, he started 29th on the grid, and he's making his way up the order now as they come down the start-finish straight. Lazaro there are on the inside now as we come down towards the first chicane. Let's see what Lazaro can do. Here's a quick replay, and this was probably the big crash you were talking about. Bang, there we go. And it's just been, for Hevesi, it has been an absolute disaster.
Yeah, that was not ideal. There was a big one right coming through that final corner. And it's easy to do around this circuit, which bites so hard. One person who's not having any issue is Jimmy Nasula, just running away at the front, making an enormous gap from Luca D'Amelio. But down in the mid-pack here is... it's crazy. It's absolutely relentless in it. And in a series like this, where you've got some excellent drivers, you don't have any room to breathe until you've built a 5.5 second gap, and now you just get to cruise your way to a potential checker flag.
They are fighting to get at the Le Mans Virtual 24-hour, where half our $250,000 prize pool is going to be awarded for that race alone. So if they can qualify for that, they have a chance to go and fight for that money, and that's exactly what they want. They want to be mixing it with the big teams in esports. Some of these drivers, big drivers in esports, but not associated with those teams who have qualified through to race in the Le Mans Virtual, shall I say, have entered the Le Mans Virtual Series. All going well for Nisula, though. He leads by just under 6 seconds, but it's getting closer in the background. Now, Luca D'Amelio at one stage looked like he had a little bit of breathing space. That's no longer the case, and we've got more changing down the lower order of the top 10 behind that as well. That looks like Hevesi about to make a move on Baldy. So the number 4 trying to recover up the field and trying to get back up a position into 7th. Looked like he'd briefly made the place, but drops back down to 8th now.
Yeah, Gogo Baldi's he's a very impressive driver, more of a touring car driver. Jumped into this, actually didn't realise how the qualifying format worked. I was chatting to him earlier. You can see going side by side up with Hevesi running into the corner, driving for Mirror Esports normally and going around the outside. That is a bold move from Hevesi, just a little bit of contact, and Gogo Baldi sent off the road. Yeah, well,
it was very brave, but nicely done there as we see the change of position, but runs slightly wide through the first Lesmo. I think just about gets away with it into Lesmo 2. That could be slightly dirty tyres, but it's place made and off he goes. So good driving there.
Yeah, and like you say, it takes two to tango in a battle like that, and they certainly did so. Let's take a look at this battle. Ooh, that was Moritz Mel with the number 7 being Darius Andre, just running side by side. Volante esports driver there, just running over. To be fair, in that scenario, probably the safest option, which is not easy to say.
Yeah, just go straight across the gravel.
Yeah, well,
there was no other option at that point, was there?
Absolutely.
So we are almost 15 minutes into this race. Of course, we are expecting to see one stop. Lewis, of course, you've spoken to some of the drivers that are going to be taking part, and we reckon one stop in the final 20 minutes of the race. So we're about 10 minutes away from when we think the pit stop window will open. But these fixed setups, Lewis, just makes it such a level playing field, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's one of those beautiful things in sim racing that you can just go, hey, do you know what? Everyone else is going to be driving with the same thing. You can adjust things like your brake bias and things to make the car comfortable for yourself.
Yeah.
But when it comes to your changing of the anti-roll bars and such like that to adjust how the car takes to the track, we can't do any of that stuff. It is all about your feel, your driving inside the car. And the driver makes the difference, and that's what we like to see, and especially in a series like this where it's all about that road to joining the Le Mans Virtual next year, which will be in January, and it's a fantastic journey for them to go on. It's a tough grid, and to be honest, I think a grid like this, sometimes we see with grids where they get weaker slightly as the rounds go on. I reckon with a series like this where more people learn about it, this series is actually going to get stronger over the next few rounds.
And, though driving with a fixed setup is not going to be the setup you are potentially used to driving on. So it's going to be about adapting, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, some drivers like an understeery setup, some like an oversteery setup. I prefer mine to drive like the Titanic. I do like a bit of understeer in my car. You know, sometimes you can kick the rear end out, but a car like this, they are, it'll be understeery into the corner and oversteery off of the corner. Obviously, as you put the power down, all of those 450 brake horsepower hit the racetrack basically all at once, like an on-off switch, and it can be very, very tricky to tame such a vehicle, especially around a circuit like Monza, where departing the chicanes, it can be very, very difficult. Also, just noting that gap for Jimmy Nasula, sorry, it's 8.1 seconds. He clearly loves the setup on this car. We didn't quite catch what happened to Sean Arnold, which is a bit of a shame, because was on top in pre-qualifying by a very, very comfortable margin. It was a good couple of tenths, or was about a tenth and a half, I think it was, of a second, as we see a car there off the road. Not sure which one that was, but coming through De La Rogia, which has caught a couple out so far in this race, catching another one.
Yeah, we haven't really seen Sean Arnold's name at all, so something has gone badly wrong with his race, either pre-race or during the race, which we just haven't seen yet. So that's a real shame for Sean Arnold. But of course, he'll have the chance to qualify again for the next round and the one after. This isn't the set drivers we're going to see for every round now. We could see a lot of them over and over again, but anyone has the chance to go and qualify as long as you have R Factor 2. There is an explainer video as well on Traction, which will show you exactly what you need to do to go in and qualify for each round. So make sure you do go and check that out. If you've got some queries, head on to traction.gg, and they've got an explainer video on there for you.
Yeah, and obviously with the way this is split apart, with the different splits that we have, is that the points work in the sense that it is 35 points for the race winner, 30 for second, 28 for third, and then it drops a point for each position that you then go down to the back of the grid. Now, the differential, that's the same across all splits, but the differential between each splits comes down to participation points. Now, the drivers that have taken part in this that clearly are not having a good round, the likes of Sean Arnold, we saw, of course, Scowron as well. Now, regardless of them having these issues, as far as my understanding is, certainly with Scowron, because I think he's completed enough of the race, not 100% sure with Arnold, considering the start of the race, but they should still get the participation points, which in itself could pay very importantly at the end of the season.
Yeah, because it goes up by 25 each split. So you get 25 in the bottom split, and we have 500 drivers, split into 30s. So yeah, they're going to be getting a lot of participation points for being in this race alone, but of course they want those other points as well, because only the top two go through to the Le Mans virtual 24 hours. So there we can see the number 7 there just going straight on, Andre, but only the top two go through, so you need to be scoring big points at least at a couple of rounds to get yourself into that super final.
Yeah, absolutely. Just skipping over. I think this is about the different seven that I've seen. Because obviously Darius Andre, who's a little bit further up the grid, drives in the Volante car. I know that we can see Gergo Bowdy there is also in a number 7, but I'm pretty sure that one's a bit further up the grid. This one, I believe, is Nizio, who's down in 17th position, right in the middle of this cluster. But normally, that's a lot of that's a lot of the chicane from. I'm not sure which one that was exactly. Not good though. I can tell you that.
Yeah, someone behind going all 4 wheels over, and is going to lose a place in the background. Now they can see is already going to lose that place before we even get to Parabolica. But that's going to be Delorme, I think, has now made that move. So that's a change of 18th behind with Delorme going through. There you can see it in the background. Now, were they going tight there to break the toe? No, we're not expecting any pit stops for at least 5 more minutes. And then the race could change completely.
Potentially longer as well, because they'll be running it as far as they can on the tank, absolutely to the limit.
Here we go. This is going to be a move, is it? A little bit further down the field. Nice racing room given between both drivers there on the exit. And this is a fight back, isn't it, after that mistake? And Delorme now the one under pressure coming out of the first chicane. He's going to have to try and go tight into the second chicane. He's left room for now, but only just about, and the door has opened on the inside now, so it looks like we're going to see a change of position. He's going to try and be brave around the outside and just about holds on. So good drive in there from Delorme. He's held on to that place.
Yeah, and he's just going to allow an extra little bit of pressure onto the scene from behind, which will actually assist Delorme more than anyone else, because now he's able to focus ahead. Virtual Drivers by TX3, a team well known across sim racing. They've taken part quite a lot more so, elsewhere, but they have started racing a fair amount on rFactor 2 with quite a few of their drivers, including a couple that are taking part in the Le Mans Virtual Series, the likes of Alessandro Ottaviani taking part in that one. So a strong outfit, and they're getting better.
Yeah, we got to move here a little bit further up the field in towards the Parabolica, and nicely executed there. I think that might have been for 9th place, that move, as they now come out of the final corner and up towards the start-finish straight. So good driving all round. We're seeing lots of good racing throughout the field, lots of clean racing as well, which is exactly what we want to see. Now trying to break the toe. Now almost three of them going in towards this first chicane. Someone think they've seen a gap late, but backs out of it in the end. I think this is our battle for 9th, 10th and 11th now as we come out of the first chicane.
Yeah, there's Boda was just trying to figure his way through the inside. Janis Brakshock, who started further up the grid, wants to make some more progress. Is actually in recent past in sim racing gone quite well around Monza, and now fancies another move, gets to the inside and doesn't really commit to it completely, but now sends it in. There's a bit of contact running over the chicane, and that's not so good from Murgli, who's just going to skip it and keep the position. Oh, Janis Brakshock coming across.
Yeah, that's Boda there, of course, Brakshock trying to get up the inside, not going to work on that occasion. So of course we had the driver there just go straight across the chicane, Murgli, and we'll have to think about giving that place back, but it's going to hold on to it for now. All this is doing, Lewis, is it's just inviting more people to the party, isn't it? Because we've got 2 more cars in the background now that are closing in, and one of them is Andre in the number 7 as well, and Mel is not too far behind that either, so we can see not the car directly behind us, but the one behind that. There we can see Andre closing in. Andre going wide. That's going to allow pressure from Mel, and that's ahead of us, going to give some breathing space to Murgli in the number 12. So can take a breather for now, but there's still a long way to go in this race. And these are for big points, of course, from the battle from 9th down. This is for 22 points, the battle for 9th place. So we don't have big splits between the points at the front. It's only 1 point here, 1 point there, unless you're in the top 3. As we've got a good toe, that's Brakshock there off the final corner. He's going to look to the inside. Murgli's left in the space, and it's almost a repeat of what we saw a little earlier in the lap. Are we going to see anyone bail it over the chicane this time? No. Behind, Andre trying to get up the inside there. They're going to be side by side out of the corner there, Andre and Boda, Lewis.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. Sort of jumping into that move from Darius Andre. Obviously wants to gain the position because he's battled with Moritz Mel behind, and maybe there was a little bit of beef in that battle, and so fancies getting past and moving up. There goes the dive down the inside into De La Roja chicane. Next target is Murgli ahead, who is once again eyeing up Janis Brakshock. The problem with this track is that you cannot pull away from anyone. The slipstream is so big that you get past and then you're the sitting duck.
Yeah, when you make a move, you need to make it not just stick, but you also need to put the other driver under immediate pressure, so that gives you the chance to get away a little bit. You need to pass a driver and have them on the defensive from the drivers behind straight away to give yourself a little bit of a gap. That's what we saw a little bit further up the road, and you can see that breathing space has been allowed. But Andre is the one moving up the order. We've seen him consistently making moves, and now he's looking at the back of Murgli here, going down towards the Parabolica. It's still very close up ahead as well. It looks like D'Amelio has broken clear in 2nd. Likewise, our driver in 3rd there, Hagfeldt, has also broken slightly clear from the number 6 of Kalashai, and then it's a big queue behind that, which we just saw. But here is back to the battle we were watching a little bit earlier, one of our virtual drivers by TX3.
Yeah, a bit of a dive to the inside there. There was the look, but there was no move through. And that's the thing into Parabolica.
Scare tactics almost, wasn't it?
You want to get them offline.
Yeah.
Exactly. You want, if you can take them, make them take the long radius around. Yes, sure, they'll have a better drive with the exit, but still.
We've got our first pitter as well. San Filippo has come straight into the pits by the looks of it. So Interesting to see how that one goes, going a little bit wide here. There we can see the scare tactics working on that occasion, and this is just inviting more pressure from behind as well. So really good battling all the way through the field, and it looked like Sanfilippo has come into the pits. We'll see exactly where he rejoins, as this is our battle for 16th place, going in towards the second chicane, and 2 places lost there as they're going to be side by side through the chicane. This could end in tears, but they all just about get away with it for the time being.
Yeah, that was what I would classify as bold, sending it in that deep through there, and there goes Delorme straight out of the way. Did not really fancy fighting too hard, as Lazzaro was the one who picked up that position through the middle of it.
I'd say that's tyres have completely gone, hasn't it, on the car we are on board with, because he's lost 3 places and hasn't really fought either of them very hard. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see a pit stop on this lap.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's less so tyres and more so getting out of the rhythm. The thing is with these, the tyres, they should last 45 minutes easy peasy, no problem. Obviously, it's a fuel-limited race. The problem would come from a couple of cars that we've seen, like Mergeli, for example, locking up. That's where obviously you get flat spots, which are simulated in rFactor 2, and they are problems, and thermal degradation as well, as we've got more side-by-side running down the start-finish straight.
Yeah, very see. We'll come back to that rhythm of Monza, because it does exist, as there we can see Moritz Mel making a move, and defending, shall I say. Boda was the one trying to go forwards, and it looks like Boda's the one behind now. Mel just ahead. So battle for 11th and 12th on screen. We can see Mel leading Boda now as they make their way round towards the second chicane, and going immediately defensive there was Mel, as more drivers coming into the pits to get some fuel in the tank and get themselves back out onto the circuit. They're going to have the chance to come onto a clear track. So early stoppers, Lewis, I guess, is that just, if they're in a huge battle, let's just get out of this, get some fuel in the car, and try to get personal best laps in?
So some of this will be fuel, of course, fuel coming down to the limit, having a couple of laps left and needing to come in, like having the requirement you've burnt too much fuel over the first part of the race. But the other part is what you were saying there, absolutely getting out of the danger zone. Or what we were talking about prior to the broadcast is contact is on in the pit lane. You will make contact with other cars inside the pit lane as you would in real life. Now, with that, we were saying, I want to come in a lap or 2 early. I'd want to get out of the danger zone in the pit lane, which is critical, because contact in the pit lane, you're done. Leader's in.
Yeah, and leader, as you said, Nisula has come in. So how does D'Amelio respond to this? Now, he's going to go, you would think it'd go at least 1 more lap, but this is it now. D'Amelio's got to get his foot down. He's got a chance here to just narrow that gap. I mean, it's a very comfortable lead for Nisula. So the main thing for him is going to be just keep yourself out of trouble when you come out of the pits now.
Yeah, and like you say, you're hoping that you're coming out into clean air, which around a circuit like this, you'd assume, with the trains and stuff that we've got, realistically, you should come out in clean air. You probably won't. You're going to come up with a couple of other cars. Now, it's hoping that the car that you've come out with is a nice guy, and he's going to give you slipstream for a little bit, and then let you go. Which, from experience, never happens.
But as you said, racing at a track like Monza, there's a real rhythm to it, isn't it? Because it's a very, would you say it's a very punishing track? Anywhere you make a mistake, you're costed heavily. So once one goes by, a few can quickly follow.
Yeah, there are a couple of circuits, of course, like Suzuka, where it's one corner into another, and you get knocked out of the rhythm there, and you're basically done. A circuit like this, though, is all about confidence, and you get knocked off of your confidence, and that's a big deal. I mean, it's one of the heaviest braking circuits that you'll ever visit across the entire planet. So intense, and of course, whilst in real life we speak of the brake failures and stuff, which can still happen, although on a 4-hour race or even in this a 45-minute race, it's very, very unlikely. But it's about your confidence in the brake. You want to know that when you hit that brake pedal, I know where I'm going to stop. I know that I'm not going to lock up. I know that I'm not going to burn out the tyres, because a lock up around here at these kind of speeds, your tyre's basically done. By that point, it's so critical to not lock up, and not lose all the percentage in the tyre, and not flat spot it. Yeah, it's very difficult, but I'd say less so from a rhythm, more so from a confidence point of view.
Havesi comes in as we talk about that as well. This is our battle for second on track that we're looking at. Hagfeldt there leading Kalashai, Arduni and Pupo behind that as well. We've also got Baldy in 2.3 seconds back from this battle. So this is a four-way fight for second. It looks like these guys have taken a slightly more patient approach at this phase of the race, just getting settled in before they're going to come in for their stops. They know that D'Amelio there is in vision, is 2.5 seconds, just under 3 seconds up the road. If they can work together a little bit, not fight each other, there's a chance. Well, there we go. A mistake there from Hagfeldt, and that's going to be Kalashai going through into second. Easy as you like to make a mistake, and the rhythm's gone. Here we can see now he's going to have to try and go defensive into Lmp2 and just about manages to hang on. But this is where Kalashai gets a little bit of a gap. For Kalashai now, he's got to try and take advantage of this. The pressure doesn't end for Hagfeldt, though, Lewis.
Yeah, if I was Adrina now, I'd be tempted not to go and make the move, but Christopher Hagfeldt's still going to have to defend coming down into Ascari. Covers it off really nicely, but very, very aggressive in defence, trying to keep Adrina behind. And of course with Leandro Pupo directly behind that as well. Once you get back into the rhythm, once you get back into the slipstream, things are all right. But Adrina's, once again, if you look at that time gap, is very, very close indeed, running down into the Parabolica. And a potential dive here. It's not really a great overtaking opportunity, the Parabolica, because if you pass there, you're a sitting duck for running down into the first chicane. So wait, be patient. I think,
are we going to see a stop at the back here? No, it was just a tight line through. Yes, totally agree. It's just better to sit in and wait behind. Here we go. This is going to be another place lost for Hagfeldt after that mistake back at the second chicane. Lost it a place immediately to Kalashai, and now Arduni is going to go through in the 15 as well, and a very aggressive move there from Arduni, and it's slightly unsettled Hagfeldt, and Pupo behind is now going to try and get through as well.
Yeah, not a good couple of laps from the virtual drivers by TX3 Man, and this is where the confidence has kind of gone. Had that mistake, obviously, through the De La Roja chicane, goes to defend it once again, and Pupo's now going to go to the outside and going to send this all the way around. This is a big one.
A little lock up there from Hagfeldt, and Pupo's going to try and get the switch back on the exit. See, has the extra momentum, would be very brave. I think just filling the mirrors slightly there, trying to unsettle Hagfeldt behind. Now we can see them coming in towards Lmp2, and Hagfeldt has managed to find his feet again, almost. Not fully, but yes, certainly on the limit through Lmp2. But that's how much they're having to push. They're all in the same car, and they're all on a fixed setup. So, you can only find the time within yourself.
Well, when you race normally, and we'll see this quite a lot tomorrow, particularly with the GTE cars, of course, where you've got all these different cars that when you're driving behind someone, you're sizing up where this car has an advantage and why this car's faster and where I can make the move, where they're weak, where they're strong, etc. Now, in these, you know where they're weak and where they're strong because you're all driving the same thing. It's all about learning what the driver's doing. Now, where you've got a couple of drivers that have raced with each other for a couple of times, there's not too many on the grid that are in that boat. But when you've got that sort of connection, you understand where they're weak and where they're strong, even before you've got near them. You don't have to worry about what setup they're on. You just know.
And Nisula is in 13th and is catching Zan Rosso. Of course, that's our leader who's stopped. We're going to go on board with Pupo here, looking at the back of Hagfeldt's going to send it down the inside into the first chicane. And I think that wasn't a send it. That was slightly out braking, caught out by the extra speed in the toe job. And a bit of a mistake there. Closing in the background as well, Baldy, I can see they're also closing in on this fight. 1.8 behind currently. We'll have to actually monitor that gap over the next couple of laps just to see. I'm interested to see what happens, but you can just see the couple of battles that Hagfeldt has had. Those two ahead have now managed to gain a little bit of a gap, Kalashai and Arduni. Yeah,
Gogo Baldi had to start from 18th on this grid, so he's worked his way up bit by bit, and there aren't many drivers when it comes to just keeping his calm. He's a touring car driver, but not in the way that you'd normally assume when it comes to touring car driving, because everyone always thinks that, oh, he's going to bash him off the road, and he's going to do this, and he's going to do that. No, Gogo Baldi's masterpiece is avoiding calamitous action. He'll see it happening before it's happened, and he'll know exactly what to do, and that's why he wins championships. That's why he kind of avoids all this stuff, because he just knows how to dart his way through it and read the road.
Yeah, big movers as well. Arduni, of course, is one of them, but another one of them is George Whitehouse, who's come up from 29th on the grid George Whitehouse, who I know from racing in karts, George Whitehouse has come up 19 places so far and is into 10th place. That's an absolutely brilliant effort, which proves when you're going on there setting lap after lap just to try and get that fastest lap to get in the split and then set the grid, doing that for 45 minutes is completely different. And George Whitehouse has showed great consistency so far in this race, and he is moving himself up the order very nicely. He's closing in as well on the likes of Boda. So George Whitehouse definitely one to watch as we go into the latter stages of this race. I think we may have picked him up now on screen coming in towards the first chicane. Bit of a battle just preparing ahead as well. So this is good stuff here from George Whitehouse. As we're on board, Lewis, I'll hand over to you to talk us through a little bit of Monza.
Yeah, absolutely, and what a track it is as we run round Curva Grande. Now, this is really, really interesting where we have teams and stuff like this. We're going quite deep into this race. We only have 9 minutes left. Now, the thing is, when you've got a little bit deep into the braking zone, as we'll see Whitehouse leave there. He's looking after his tyres, he's looking after his fuel, and that's why they're going so deep into the race. I still think they're going to have to make a splash and dash, no doubt of that, as we run through Lesmo 1 and Lesmo 2, driving this a little bit earlier. Such a difficult corner, arguably one of the hardest on the circuit, where you dip down, you've got to get close to that white line, but if you go too far, you clip that curb, you go straight on, and it is a disaster. Let's see if George Whitehouse can make a move running down here into Ascari on Boda. That was... Let's be honest, that was going to be a pretty bold dive up through Ascari, over the left, over the right, back over to the left-hand side, and then onto the back straight down to the Parabolica. Pretty clean lap, but you can see in the slipstream, easy to save fuel.
Yes, that's a very good point, and that's exactly what George Whitehouse is going to be doing, because it means his time in the pits is going to be slightly less than those around him. This is the view back from Boda, and George Whitehouse closing that gap down from 1.2 to about half a second. Just forced Boda into a few mistakes through the Lesmos, and all of a sudden Whitehouse looks like he's about to make this move now as we come down towards the first chicane. There's nothing Boda can do here. I think he may just about make it, and as we say that, Whitehouse is saving more fuel there, because all of a sudden the gap just stopped decreasing very, very quickly.
I think it's wiser, because I mean, you know this as a driver, you know when you're not going to get close enough, right? You know that when that gap is not going to come down enough for you to make a dive. So why are you going to burn the extra little bit of fuel that it takes you to bring you even closer when you can just back off, use the slipstream to pull you along, brake a little bit later, and coast into the corner? It's all about playing those long term games. Even in a 45-minute race, we're still playing the long game. Yeah, it's not endurance racing, it's only 45, but still, you're trying to extend it. You're trying to make that splash and dash that little bit less at the end of the race. Every litre you save is a litre you don't have to put in the car, which just means that pit stop is shorter by the smallest margin. I mean, to be fair, at this point, I'm almost doubting myself. I'm like, well, if they're this close, maybe they can get...
Yeah, that's what I mean, as Nisula made the biggest mistake, having had a hugely comfortable lead, come in, and all of a sudden he's in 13th, and he hasn't actually made any places since we last spoke about him on Zan Rosso. He's closed the gap down from over a second to just under 2/10, but he's got to be careful when making any moves that he doesn't find himself in a big battle or in contact and out of the race. So Nisula, I mean, 6 minutes is not a long time. When you say it's a timed race as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little baffled. We did talk to a couple of drivers prior to this, asking about the fuel and such as that, and the expectation was that they would require a pit stop in this race. However, with where they are at the moment, George Whitehouse very close to Papa now. I think this might well be a move. Let's see if he lifts or darts out. So he's going to dart, and I think then might well lift.
Right, he's going to go down the outside here of Boda. He's got a little bit of tow from Merguli. Merguli's run deep, and that's caught out Boda as well. It almost caught out Whitehouse. That was a case of braking when the car ahead of you brakes as well, and everyone runs wide, but just Merguli there, just having to skip over the curbs. We go back on board now, looking back from Boda at Whitehouse. Whitehouse closing in. Is he going to find space on the inside to go for a move? There is a car's width there. Whitehouse has found it. Whitehouse goes down the inside. There's slight contact there. Very, very aggressive from Boda there, who gave no room. That was the door slamming in the face of Whitehouse. And Whitehouse, in the end, I think, has had to back out, and he's now the one coming under pressure from Moritz Smell behind.
Yeah, Maurice Mel has been in a battle pack quite a few times today, and now finds himself with a couple of cars ahead and the potential for even more. And you can see Zan Rosso in the background with Nisula,
who still hasn't got
by, which is insane to me.
It's a reminder, isn't it, that he didn't take tyres, he just took some fuel and came straight back out. So, yeah. You know, his tyres are just as old as those around him, even though he's been in the pit lane.
And based on where these guys are, I'm pretty sure that Luca D'Amelio is once again not into the pit lane, which is really baffling to me.
He'll be coming in on going on to his last lap nearly at this stage.
Yeah.
Now.
Or maybe not at all. Maybe he'll be able to somehow magic some fuel into the car and carry on. Very impressive either way, because fuel saving is not easy, not around this track anyway.
I mean, how many litres did they put in the car for these?
I was told 50.
Right.
Oh, here we go.
Right, we're side by side. We'll come back to that in a second, because this looks like Whitehouse trying to go down the outside of Boda. Whitehouse to the right of screen, Boda to the left, and Boda's going to hang on to position, and Whitehouse gets a little bit of a helping hand from Moritz Mel behind. That unsettles the car of Mel, and Whitehouse, that delays him out of the corner, and he's going to have to try and go again on Boda. All of this has just allowed Merguli to sail off over 2 seconds clear in the distance. One thing worth picking up is our battle for second as well, because it is, you know, eventually that's going to have to become a battle for second. Right now it's, you know, a few drivers following each other around all the way down to 6th place, Boldy. But when do you pull the pin? If you're the likes of Kalashai, if you're all saving fuel massively, can you? You know, can you think about trying to go for a move?
I mean, I commentated on a race a few years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, where Gergo Bowdy was sat in at the back of a train. Weirdly enough, here we are. And what he did was he just waited for everyone to make a mistake. Someone would make a mistake, he'd pick up the position. Someone would make a mistake, pick up the position, and he did that. Right now, I wonder if he's in that kind of boat. Here's our race leader at the moment, Luca D'Amelio, out of the final corner.
Is he going to come in? Let's see.
It's tight.
No,
it's not.
No.
I think they can do it. I think they can get to the end.
Yeah, but I'd say that's almost a certainty now. That battle for second in the background is going to get very tasty, isn't it? There you can see them all. Leading there is Arduni in second, Kalashai in third place, second in that queue, and then we have Hagfeldt in the green and black colours. Papo behind that, then it is Bowdy next along, and Brashok is not too far behind that either in 7th place. So second down to 7th, all within arm's length of each other. Leading it so far is Arduni, who's trying to get his foot down just to relieve the pressure. Kalashai is probably the one under more immediate pressure in third, as we see an absolute send there a little bit further down. That's Boda, wasn't it? Going once again defensive from George Whitehouse, who's going to be becoming increasingly frustrated in that car. That is a battle for 22 points in this race. There's more side-by-side action going on a little bit further back. As I wonder if we're going to pick up Nisula at any point as well to see how he's getting on, because he's been behind Zan Rosso for some time as we make our way in towards the second chicane. And I think this is Nisula, in fact, yeah. Of course, who is right behind Zan Rosso and has been there, well, since he came out the pits, pretty much. He closed the 1.7 gap, I think it was, and he stayed there.
Yeah, getting a little bit of a message from team manager of Nisula, being Matt Strand, of course, from Satellite Racing, and he's telling me that essentially it wasn't a strategical error. It was an error on, you know, from a technical side of view that meant that Nisula had to come into the pit lane based on some things. And what he's also told me is that no one else should have to pit, which makes sense as Luca D'Amelio started the final lap of the race. So some of the drivers were a little bit confused coming into it, whereas right now, the fuel margins and stuff they've all picked up on, they've jumped into it in the race and have evidently been able to run the amount of fuel to run the distance. And D'Amelio has just gone, yeah, right, mate, I'll just cruise around and I'll pick up the win.
Well, he's got 5 seconds in hand, and this is probably going to be the last lap now for Luca D'Amelio. Arduni in second has got his foot down even further. Kalashai now 1.4 back, and he's the one under pressure. As we said, this is a little bit further back. Is this the Boda battle? Whitehouse in the all red has gone through to 9th place. Mel goes down the inside there. Oh, there we go, and it's contact there between both Mel and Boda. Boda helps Mel back round again, and they both go off in form.
Yeah, that was just a little bit kind of clumsy.
Looked like a familiar incident, didn't it,
right.
in recent weeks. But albeit a little less dramatic. So that one could have been debated for a long time. Oh, there we go. They're not very happy with each other, are they? They're going to be more side by side into the second chicane. Somehow they come out of it, still exactly side by side. It's Mel to the left of screen and Boda to the right. Boda could be hang out to dry here as Zan Rosso now tucks it down the inside with a bit of a slide. Is he going to get a help here from Nisula? Nisula has the best seat in the house at the back of this queue as we now come out of the second Lesmo and to the far left of screen. There is Nisula trying to pick up a place on Zan Rosso, and he's been trying for a very, very long time to get that position. But back to our leader, Luca D'Amelio, who stayed patient in this race. And from 8th on the grid, Luca D'Amelio is going to come up to the line, and he is going to take the first win in the Le Mans Virtual Cup. Luca D'Amelio, our first ever winner, and 35 points plus the additional participation points go to him. Arduni takes the 32 points for second place. Kalashai holds on to third place, with Hagfeldt very, very close at the line. Then it was Papo Baldi, Brashok, Merguli. Whitehouse did get that move done in the end. Mel finishes in 10th place. Boda. Then we had Zan Rosso, who we're on board with here, looking back at Nisula, who finished in 13th place. Well, what a race it was to get us underway. Apologies, we joined it a couple of laps in, but it gave us immediate entertainment. And after that, the entertainment never really stopped all the way until the lights. A brilliant strategical drive from Luca D'Amelio to come up from 8th place. That's where he found himself on the grid. He worked his way through, he got a gap, and he took advantage. And that was it. Luca D'Amelio went on to win.
Yeah, quite a lot happened quite clearly on lap 1, which means that race control are going to be very busy with that kind of race, picking their way through it and making sure that everything was as fair as can be. For drivers like that, though, when you get you can't make your own destiny in that scenario. You hope that things unfold the way for you, and D'Amelio clearly picked his way through on lap 1 and the early stages of the race quite nicely, with Nisula and his issues having to come down into pit lane. You don't make your own destiny, but when you're given it like that, it's all about you making the laps and making the opportunity that you have stick, and D'Amelio did that absolutely perfectly, didn't make a single mistake.
A shame for Nisula, because he did show himself as, the front runner, in that race. He started 5th, he got himself up to the front, and it seemed there's been some sort of issue for Nisula that has forced him into the pits. He wasn't the only one to pit. A few drivers did actually come into the pits. Some of those may have been misjudgments, but for Nisula it seemed it wasn't quite a misjudgment. It was more a bit of a problem.
Yeah, so I'm not 100% sure as to what it was. Obviously, getting a little bit of information. I'm assuming this is the same issue that's affected a couple of drivers with how they've prepared, how they've jumped into it. So coming into it, we were kind of told there might be 50 litres that they can take into the race. I think, based on what I'm getting here, they might have been able to take a little bit more, and the default setup would normally give that to you. However, certain issues on setup from a driver's point of view, they might well have picked the wrong thing, and it started them with a slightly smaller tank, slightly different brake settings, and when they've got into the race, they've only gone, whoops. And once the race has started, there's nothing you can do about that. You can't just hit the escape key and go, let's just restart. It's a live race. It's as real as you would get, and if you've had an issue like that, it's tough.
I mean, there was some very much first round racing in there at times, wasn't there? There was people fighting tooth and nail to get themselves up the order. But we also had, we had a lot of fantastic racing across the board. It was very close in that fight for second, all the way to the flag. Luca D'Amelio may have got away, but behind that, it was anyone's all the way down to 7th place.
Oh, yeah, we had loads of great battles in all of that. That battle for second, including some great drivers, some big names, of course, said before that the likes of Gergo Baldi, who drives for Mirror Esports, incredible names, up and down the grid. Not everyone had a great day, but they will get to come back, if they qualify back into it in a month's time to once again take to the racetrack.
Well, let's take a look back at the highlights of the race for those of you who may have not been with us for the full race. Let's look back now at some of the main highlights. So that'll look back at some of the highlights from the first round of the Le Mans Virtual Cup. Thanks to everyone who participated tonight. Don't forget, you can participate at the next round and the remaining ones after. Of course, next it is going to be a Spa. The Cup race will be on the 15th of October. So make sure you get practicing. Make sure then you get your time in. And of course, wherever you qualify, you will still race. If you're in the top split, we will see you at the next round. We look forward to that as well. And the top two at the end of the 4 rounds, we're going to see you in the 24-hour race at the end of our season as well. What did you make of it? It was a fantastic race, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, to see someone the likes of Luca Di Melio, who's won in some of R Factor 2's biggest competitions. He won on debut back at Imola in the GT Pro Series on R Factor 2, powered by Traction.gg. It's a great round for them. And so for him to kick off this season in a similar sort of way by just coming through the carnage and chaos and just taking top honours, it's great, but the journey begins now. Yes, sure, 1 round you've ticked off, that's all well and good. Once we go to the next round, I mean, Spa's a different circuit. Once we head to the Nordschleife in round number 3, like, completely different scenes which we could see, and that's where it's still wide open. I mean, you were saying we've got plenty of splits. For all the drivers jumping in, they can jump into split 2 and still compete for that top 2 position, still compete to get into Le Mans Virtual.
Yes, and let's talk more about the Le Mans Virtual Series, because tomorrow it is going to be the 4 hours of Monza. We're going to be live from 11:30 GMT. It's going to be a bit of a build-up, and then we are going to get going for the 4 hours of Monza, the first round of 5 for the brand new Le Mans Virtual Series. It's going to be absolutely fantastic. The grid is set, which we saw earlier as well. Now we're going to put them all to racing over 4 hours.
Yeah, and what a grid it is. I mean, sensational qualifying to see that Dane Warren on pole position in GTE and also in the LMP so close. Last moments, Haniowski jumping up on top there. A front row of R8G and the Bicoles Burst Esports team. I am so excited.
I hope you are too, from myself, Chris McCarthy, Martin Haven and Lewis McLeod. Thank you very much for your company today. We will see you tomorrow at 11:30 GMT for the 4 hours of Monza. Make sure you don't miss it.
Red lights out and we are racing into the Rettifilio. He's got a really good run. Sailing up the inside. Battle for the lead. Victory in Monza.